What if I told you that rejection isn't proof you're unworthy, but proof that you dared to show up? That the moment they said no wasn't the moment you failed. It was the moment you were brave. I remember the first time rejection hit me so hard, it made me question who I was. I was 11 years old, and I had poured my little heart into writing a poem. It wasn't just a school assignment to me. It was me on that page. Every word felt like a tiny piece of my soul, carefully chosen and placed. I can still see myself standing there, small hands clutching that crumpled paper, eyes bright with hope. I handed it to my teacher, this adult I looked up to, trusted to see me. And I waited for her to say something kind, something that would tell me my voice mattered. She glanced at it. Barely. And then, without even meeting my eyes, she said, "That's not very good. Maybe try something easier next time." I don't remember walking back to my desk. I don't remember the rest of that day. What I do remember, with a clarity that aches even now, is the feeling of the world shrinking, the way my chest tightened, the way I wanted to disappear inside myself. In that moment, it wasn't just that my poem had been rejected. My voice had been rejected. My heart had been rejected. And as kids, or honestly even as adults, we don't always have the tools to separate what we do from who we are. That's what rejection can do, especially the first time. It doesn't feel like someone is saying, "This isn't right for me," or "This doesn't fit." It feels like they're saying, "You aren't right. You don't fit." Psychologists call this personalization. When we take the sting of rejection and internalize it, when we make someone else's no into a mirror of our deepest fears. We stop seeing rejection as about timing, taste, or circumstance and start believing it's about our value. And here's the heartbreaking part. Most of us carry that first rejection, that first deep sting, like an invisible scar. We let it whisper lies to us in moments of vulnerability. Don't try. Don't speak. Don't hope. But what I wish someone had told that 11-year-old girl, what I want to tell you right now, is this. Their no was never about your worth. The fact that you were brave enough to put your heart on that page, to offer yourself up to the world, that's where your worth lives. Not in their response, not in their approval, but in your courage to show up at all. And maybe, just maybe, the most important work we do after rejection is learning to separate the event from our identity. Because the truth is, rejection doesn't mean you're unworthy. It means you're daring to be seen. There's a kind of rejection that doesn't just sting, it feels like betrayal. It's not just the no that hurts, it's that you let yourself believe this time might be different, that you let your guard down, that you hoped. I felt it in my late 20s. I had worked tirelessly for years, believing that if I just did everything right, if I just gave enough, stayed late enough, proved myself hard enough, the doors would open. And then that dream opportunity appeared, the one I thought had my name written on it. I applied, I prepped, I showed up to the interviews with everything I had. I let myself imagine a future I'd been too scared to hope for before. And then the email came. One line. "We've decided to move forward with another candidate." I remember reading it over and over, as if maybe I could will it to change, as if maybe, if I stared at the words long enough, I could undo them. The hurt wasn't just about the job. It was about what I had let myself feel, the hope that bloomed, the belief that maybe I was finally enough. That's what makes rejection feel like betrayal. It's not only about losing the thing we wanted. It's about the way rejection shatters the trust we placed in others, in the world, in ourselves. We start questioning, why did I believe this could happen for me? Why did I let myself get my hopes up? Was I foolish? Was I naive? And when rejection feels like betrayal, it cuts deeper than disappointment. It cuts into our relationship with hope itself. We start to see hope as dangerous, as something that sets us up for pain. But here's the hard, soul-deep truth I've had to learn. Hope is not weakness. Hope is not foolishness. Hope is an act of courage. To hope in a world that will inevitably hand you no's, setbacks, and losses, that is one of the most rebellious, resilient things you can do. And I know this, if we let rejection turn us bitter, if we let it close our hearts, we betray ourselves. The real betrayal isn't that others said no. The real betrayal would be letting their no convince us to stop believing, to stop trying, to stop daring. So the next time rejection feels like betrayal, I want you to remember, it wasn't foolish to hope. It was brave. And the world needs more of that kind of bravery, not less. After enough rejections, after enough of those sharp, invisible wounds, something happens inside us. We start building armor, not the kind you see, not the kind made of steel or leather. No, this armor is quieter, but heavier. And this armor comes from experience. It wraps around our hearts in layers so subtle we barely notice at first. I built mine out of small decisions. I stopped speaking up in meetings because, what's the point? I stopped sharing my creative ideas because, why risk it? I stopped telling people how much they meant to me because, what if they didn't feel the same? I convinced myself I didn't really want the things I was too afraid to reach for. Maybe you know this armor, maybe you've worn it too. The I don't care mask that protects you from the sting of rejection because you tell yourself it doesn't matter anyway. The I'm too busy to try shield that keeps you safe because if you don't try, you can't fail. The I'll push you away before you can hurt me sword that convinces you you're in control, even as it leaves you lonelier than you'd ever admit. And at first, that armor feels like protection. It feels smart, safe, like we finally figured out how to stop the bleeding. But over time, that armor becomes a prison. Psychologists talk about emotional avoidance, the way we try to dodge pain, shame, and vulnerability at all costs. But the cost is this: we don't just block out the hurt. We block out joy, love, connection, because we can't selectively numb emotion. When we armor against rejection, we also armor against belonging. I remember sitting at a friend's wedding once, watching the way they looked at each other, the way they dared to love out loud, and feeling this ache I couldn't name. That was the cost of my armor. I'd protected myself from rejection, but I'd also protected myself right out of the things that give life meaning. And here's what I had to learn, slowly, painfully. It's better to risk rejection as your true self than to live untouched but unseen. Because that armor, it keeps out the no's, yes, but it also keeps out the yeses. It keeps out the people and places that would have chosen you, loved you, celebrated you, if only you'd let them see who you really are. So ask yourself, what would it look like to take off the armor, piece by piece? What would it feel like to show up, heart open, knowing you might get hurt, but knowing you might also finally be seen? There's this moment, And it doesn't come right away, not in the middle of the heartbreak, not in the thick of the tears, but it comes later, in the quiet, when the dust settles, when you're sitting alone, maybe in your car, maybe staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., maybe out on a walk because you couldn't sit with the ache any longer. And in that moment, you look back at that rejection, that no that felt like the end, and you see it differently. You see how it wasn't the universe slamming a door to punish you, but gently, or maybe not so gently, steering you toward a door you didn't even know existed. I remember a time I was absolutely certain something was meant for me. I wanted it so badly it hurt. I poured myself into it. I imagined the future around it. And when the rejection came, I felt like I had been abandoned by life itself. Like all my effort, my hope, my vulnerability had been wasted. But here's what I couldn't see then. That rejection was clearing space. It was creating room in my life for something I hadn't dared to want because I thought it was too good, too big, too beyond me. Psychologists call this cognitive reappraisal, the ability to look back at a painful experience and find new meaning in it. It's a skill, but it's also a grace. It's the point where you stop seeing rejection as the end of your story and start seeing it as a plot twist that led you somewhere better, somewhere truer. I look at my life now, and I can trace the line back through every no, every heartbreak, every closed door. And I realize that without them, I wouldn't be here. Without those rejections, I would have been stuck in places that weren't right for me, clinging to things that weren't meant for me, becoming someone I wasn't supposed to be. Here's the truth I want you to carry. Rejection is often the universe's way of saying, not this, not here, not yet. There's more. There's better. Keep going. So the next time a no breaks your heart, I hope you'll remember, this isn't the end. It's a redirection, a gentle nudge, or maybe a shove towards something you can't see yet, but that's waiting for you. There's a kind of strength we don't talk about enough. The strength it takes to try again after rejection. No one sees it, no one celebrates it, but it's there. It's in the artist who picks up the paintbrush after a gallery said no. It's in the writer who opens a blank page after another rejection letter lands in their inbox. It's in the person who applies for the next job, shows up for the next date, opens their heart to the next chance, even when everything inside them whispers, don't risk it, stay safe. After a rejection, it's so tempting to stay small, to stay hidden, to tell ourselves we're protecting our hearts when really we're locking them away. Because to show up again after rejection means we have to face that fear that maybe this time will hurt too. Maybe this time the no will come again. I remember a time when I almost gave up on something I loved. I'd poured myself into a project, believing in it with all my heart, and it was rejected, dismissed, overlooked. And in the days that followed, I felt hollow. I told myself I didn't care, that it didn't matter, that I was better off not trying. But deep down, I knew the truth. If I stopped showing up, I wasn't protecting myself. I was abandoning myself. Psychologists call this resilient self-efficacy. The belief that even after failure, even after rejection, we still have the power to act, to create, to choose. It's not about believing that we'll never be hurt again. It's about believing that we can survive the hurt and still be whole. Because here's the soul-deep truth. The courage to show up again, that's what changes us. That's where growth lives. That's where grace lives. And no, it doesn't always mean you'll get the yes next time, but it means you're staying true to yourself. It means you're refusing to let someone else's no define your worth. So if you're standing at that edge, that place where rejection has knocked you down and you're not sure if you can get back up, let me tell you this. Showing up again isn't foolish. It's the bravest thing you can do. And that bravery, that's where the real power is. That's where life begins again. You were never rejected because you weren't enough. You were rejected because you were brave enough to offer something real. Keep showing up. That's where grace lives.